Welcome back. This is Pierce World Knitting. I'm Jennifer, and this is a knitting podcast all about knitting, yarny adventures, and travel. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'm so excited to be sharing that I'm featuring a traditional episode with finished objects, kind of, whips, lots of those, and a smidge of acquisitions. And I'm coming from afar to you. We are located in Mexico right now. I'm here with the love of my life and thrilled to be sharing future episodes with you about our travels. But this episode will be featuring strictly knitting components. So let's get into all of this. What I'm wearing, I am wearing the Ranunculus by Midoiri Hirose. This particular garment that I knit, I featured in my last episode for the Packing for Paradise video. This is a knit that comes with me often when I'm traveling because it is such an enjoyable knit. It goes with everything. This is a sweater pattern that is, I think, the most popular in our knitting community. It is a top-down construction with lace and texture work in the yoke, and then a little bit of sleeves. You've got your body and bibbidi-bobbidi. Gorgeous sweater. I knit this with two strands held together. We have one strand of Rerum, Natura Penelope. This is in the, I don't have the colorway in my head or on my little cheat sheet, but I believe this is in tutu if I remember. I'll include in the show notes. And it is held together with one strand of Knitting for All of Soft Silk Mohair. Gorgeous combination, I have to say, because the Natura Penelope yarn is, I believe it's a combination of merino and silk already. So it's a really beautiful fabric to create with the hands and stunning to wear. It's a really lightweight sweater, which is why I love toting it around with me in my suitcase. Doesn't take up a lot of room, but I think that combination of the silk and the mohair really allows it to be a warm layer to wear in all kinds of different climates. I have to say, I wasn't sure about the blush color with my complexion, but it's something that I really adore looking at and creating. And I feel like I've come to enjoy it against my skin tone. It's really a delight to wear and has been worn quite a bit already on this trip. So we will get into some of the whips that I have. Now, I was debating if I go through the whips that I have left at home or just solely go through the ones on vacation that I brought with me. So what I think I'm going to do is I'll focus on my vacation knits. I'll check the time and then we may go through some of the ones I have at home. Otherwise, they will be featured in another future episode. So let's get going with the items, or I should say the things that I wanted to knit on and brought with me while here. So first off, I'm going to go in chronological order, I believe, with what I last was working on, which was in the cafe this morning. So first off, I'm so excited about this piece. And things are flying all over this little table I have set up in front of me. I am knitting this gorgeous unspun sweater. I mean, it's a real looker on the needles right now, but it is just a stunning yoke. Let me tell you about this. I'm just going to open up my little new knitting journal for this year, for 2024. This is Wild Posy. Sorry, I just moved a mug there. The Wild Posy, this is the Flora version, and this is a design by Melody Hoffmann. It is an unspun sweater design by her, and Melody Hoffmann does, if you don't already know, designs garments and accessories with unspun yarn. This is two strands held together. of Plotulopi, and it is just a stunner of texture and lacework in the flora. There's another version. I'll show you. Hold on. Oh yeah, you can see there's like little lacy bits that are coming in. There's a second version that Melody Hoffmann has created called Luna, and I believe from looking at the pictures on Ravelry and Instagram that doesn't have lacework. It just has overall texture, and it has been super fun. I do love working with unspun. This is 2 strands held together, like I said, of the Plotulopi, and this is their light ash gray colorway. 3 of these plates were gifted to me by a knitting girlfriend, which I feel so thankful for. She is not a rustic lover, I am, so she happily gave me these, and I beyond happily received them and knew that I wanted to make something Melody Hoffmann-esque. I wasn't sure exactly what. This color, or I should say color work, texture work, color yoke definitely called to me. And it was something that I actually had to purchase an additional plate of because I had 3 with my dabbling into Ravelry. It seemed that I needed 4 plates to complete the garment. So what I did is I went to the knitting loft right before I left. I'm talking the day before I got onto the flight down to Mexico, and I purchased another plate from the knitting loft. They were one of the very few yarn shops, especially one that was, doable for me to get to the day before the flight, of purchasing a matching colorway of the Plotulopi. Now, the plates that I received as a gift didn't come with any information on them with lot number, so it's going to be a guess. So what I'm planning on doing is doing 1 strand of the new, probably different lot, with one of the, sorry, my voice, one of the current plates that I have to almost moral the effect. But the great thing is I've done this before. If you remember and were watching with Plotulopi, with gifted Plotulopi I had, I purchased another plate outside of that lot for my Snowy Forest by Midoiri Hirose, and it worked wonders. I think I might get away with it because if you look, there's a what's it, like almost like a tweedy effect. Is that the right term? Where there is kind of a combination of like white, Arctic white with darker bits of grays and patches, almost marling almost of the coloring already. So I think I'm being hopeful perhaps that I think combining will not be the end of the world, and it will not be extremely different, hopefully. My thought is that I will add in the new plate. I'm going to divide it in half almost and do each sleeve with 1 strand of the new, 1 strand of the old. This is the theory. Let me please talk about the textured yoke. It's just been so much fun to work on. My favorites. There are a lot of different, how can I say, stitches, I think, that go on in this pattern. But I think lace and texture work is my favorite. And if you've watched previous episodes of my 2023 knit review videos with everything I knit, I really found that I was knitting quite a bit on lace and texture motifs, and I'm finding great joy in this. So we've got some lace work that happens at the top here, little like yarn over bits, but then these are almost like, I want to say cable-y-esque stitches that are happening. Obviously I won't give the details away. This is a paid for pattern, but it's ones that I find I don't need a cable needle for, and I'm sure the vast majority of knitters will not, because it's literally 1 strand that you're holding in front. There is a gorgeous little feature here. Oh, here, I don't want to mess it up, with wrap stitches. I've had wrap stitches on the ranunculus, and I just thought it was such a fun little, I think, stitch to do to add such interesting design and texture to a yoke. And this is it. This is a lot of fun texture where Melody Hoffmann has you wrapping literally the yarn around multiple stitches to give you these interesting little like diamond motifs. I adore it. I think it's awesome. And yep, so now what I'm doing is it's almost like it's a mirrored, if you will, effect with the yoke. So you're doing kind of like, I think there's 4 sections of texture work. So I'm getting into I think the last bit of the 3rd. So it's mirroring this section. This is the center almost, if you will, of the texture work. And then I believe I'm going to go back down almost into the lace. It's going to be great. My plan is to make this sweater slightly cropped. And we'll see how much yarn I have to produce what kind of length of sleeve. It will determine, of course, the quantity of yarn that I have left over will determine the length that I have or that I can produce. Features that I'm also really enjoying already is the neckline. This is a really different neckline for me. First of all, the ribbing, which is a 1x1 ribbing, is quite short. Usually I'm used to knitting quite long, almost like mock necks, but this is a short guy. But then it's this. So after you cast on, it rolls because she doesn't have you start doing the ribbing until a little bit later. So I just think it is such a fun neckline. Let me talk about the mods quickly and then we'll press on to the next. The mods I did. So I had started this in our first chunk of our trip. We're doing different locations in Mexico as we go. And the first location that we were in, I cast on the recommended cast on for the neckline. I did notice in the pictures that I found on Ravelry and Instagram that it was quite a wide neckline, which I think looks gorgeous on people. I like a less ease on my neckline. So what I did is I had already knit a bit, I ripped it out, and I cast on 10 less stitches on this. I am knitting the first size. And that is the first mod I did. The second mod I did is I added short rows earlier than recommended. In the pattern, you go through the entire texture work yoke and then you add short rows. From the comments that I saw on Ravelry, people were saying, some that I saw were saying that if they were to knit this again, they would potentially change the location of the short rows to go just after the neck. So I thought, okay, we're going to try this. So I did it. I'm obviously not, not near complete, but I think for me it'll work. I didn't work in the pattern, if that makes sense, like in the texture into the German short rows. I just did stock net, but I think it's going to work well. I have high hope. The one thing I will say, if you are just eager money to cast this on because it's a stunner, is I didn't modify when I was doing the German short row. I did from the center, I used the beginning of round, and then I did German short rows according to calling the beginning of round the center. I did know that with the pattern, the beginning of round is not the center back. I think it's the right back shoulder, but I thought it was fine. And then I kind of realized maybe not because of the lace motif. So I don't think my lace, I'm like 99.9% sure my lace motifs will be a shift off. I'm okay with it. We'll see when it gets all knit up if I'm okay with it then. I don't know. But I think it's essentially like 3 stitches off. In the future, and I'll probably add this when I'm all done my sweater, I think I would shift around my beginning of round stitch marker to accommodate for the few stitches difference to get the eyelet stitches centered. That's a lot of information. Things that I'm really proud about with this sweater so far, I should say yoke potentially, is I actually gauge swatched. I followed along with my 2024 knitting intentions knitting process. I was allured by the yarn. Of course, it captured me and I knew I had to knit it. It was in my stash for a bit of time and I gauge swatched knowing I had wanted to knit a Melody Hoffmann design and a sweater at that. And instead of going rogue, which I normally would, and pick another sweater, which I actually had another sweater in mind by her, but gauge was totally off, I did the very responsible thing. So I'll show you my little knitting journal to prove to myself and you out there that I'm quite proud of my choices. So I did a whole bunch of swatching on one of the days before I left of different yarns to pair for packing. And oh my goodness, I don't actually have my little sticky for the Plotulopi. I must have left it at home or lost it. But I had written down like the quantity of yarn. This is not the one, but the quantity of yarn that I had in total, withheld double the length of everything I had. And then I included somewhere, it's probably on the sticky I left at home, the gauge that I got for 10 centimeters. Which on USA Needles, I am proud to say that I roughly obtained gauge for this sweater. So, I mean, responsible knitter. Yes, so I'm following the size 1 for this. I did a US 5 on the ribbing, US 8 on the body, and I'm pretty much getting gauge. I mean, there are mods already that I've done because of the neckline thing, but I think that for me is a fit and a style choice. It is not a, rambunctious, random shot in the dark, didn't match gauge kind of choice that I was doing up until this year. So, feeling very good about my yarn choices and pattern choices. It's pairing beautifully well together and I'm feeling good about all of it. So I think that's enough chatting about the Flora. I'm in love with it already and it is such an enjoyable process, I have to say. I'm going to put that aside and we are going to enjoy squishing the next thing. And you know what? I'm gonna go to the colorful one. Let's do that. Okay. So this is a fun little bag that I got at a knit night at Unit, which was, I think, a month or two ago. It was the beginning of December now. And we received a little knitting project bag, which was so cute from Claudia. Gorgeous. So I brought it with me. And inside is this uber colorful Tekla top. Hold on. Let me turn to the page. You're already seeing a little bit of a amuse-bouche of color there. This is such a fun knit. It's crumpled, so my apologies. We've been traveling. She's been smushed. This is a Tekla top. It is a no, not stranded. It is a camisole that is designed by Milena, Juhola. I hope I'm saying that okay. And it is a gorgeous pattern. I'm so thrilled to be knitting on this. This is a pattern that I saw, I think, as soon as she came out with it. I think it was a year and a half, 2 years ago. And I loved the black version. She knits this in a fingering cashmere, so soft to skin, but obviously wool. So, okay, we're going a little rogue on this. That's why I think I started with the Wild Posy Flora, because I feel like so responsible on that one that I've done such a good job, like following all these, the knitting process that I had wanted to. This is not as much following my knitting process, except following my knitting heart. So let me talk about the yarn. This is one strand of line, or I'm not sure if it's lean. I'm not sure. This is the Sandness Garn plant-based yarn. It's a combination of, I believe, cotton. I thought it was bamboo, but it's cotton, linen, and viscose. And again, if you have been watching or even saw the 2024 knitting intentions, one of my intentions was to knit with plant-based yarns. It's not something that I normally enjoy. And I think I've finished like one garment. Yes, it was another ranunculus in a plant-based fiber. It was a cotton, but I normally don't even finish things that are in plant-based fibers. So it possibly is twofold. One could be working with the fiber I don't find as enjoyable as I do with yarn, or I should say animal-based fibers. But as well is the construction of summer knits I find not my favorite usually. Creating triangles, small gauge work is not my thing. I do have to say I've been enjoying this quite a bit. I think here's why. So you first knit the 2 triangles. This I knit a size 2 for the triangles because of the gauge and size that was recommended. This is where things get a little rogue, but I cast it on the back for a size 1, if that makes sense, because you basically pick up after some increases. I'll be careful how I'm saying this because it's paid for pattern. And then you knit in the round down. I think I knit 1 centimeter less just because like she's a racy number. I'm probably not going to be wearing this out in public, at least not with another garment underneath. Let's be responsible. And then you continue with increases to get this gorgeous little ruffle. And we do have a smidge of a ruffle addiction lately. So this is just, it's been fun. Where I am with this is I have to pick up stitches all around the edge for I-cord, an I-cord finishing, which will, I think, just bring it together so nicely. And then you prepare an I-cord that gets from the little triangles at the bust and scoop over extra long to prepare this like super hot back. So it comes to the back here. So there's huge back exposure with a bit of side. The reason also why I did a size 2 on the triangle is I wanted a bit of more of a side coverage area, if that makes sense. We'll see if it works. I don't really know, and I don't think I'm going to know how it fits until I get all the I-cording basically knit up to the end. It is such fun. I knit this using a size US 3 needle, quite different than the recommended yarn, of course, because the designer had knit and intended with animal-based fibers. That's a big difference. And the fact that it was with a fingering. This is, I believe, it's classified as like a sport weight. But again, I'm knitting with a US 3 wonky loose gauge knitter. That's it. I have had compliments from people around the beach and pool that had seen me knitting and, you know, commented on the color. There was one other knitter that commented and she loved it. And this is what I enjoy. She was saying that she was knitting just a cowl. And I was like, it's not just a cowl. You were knitting fabric with your own hands. That's incredible. And then you're going to wear it. You've made that from hand. That's awesome. And then she was asking me about this, like what my plan was with this and how I was going to wear it. And I said, well, I think it's going to be a bedtime negligee kind of thing. She said, she looked me up and down in my bikini and she's like, oh no, girl, you can pull it off. I was like, day made. Thank you. Thank you to our knitting community for all the put ups. I love it. So I think for now, this is it for my Tekla top. I'm really enjoying this knit and I'm going to be really proud when I'm done. Following my knitting intentions with knitting plant-based fibers and knitting a summer top. She's going to be a stunner. That color, like, please. This is the color 3009, by the way. I believe it's a brand new colorway that came out with Sandness Garn this year. And it's just, she's going to be fun. Okay, that's it. Tekla top. Yay! Next up is a sock. Let's do a sock. Okay, this is a sock that I started in Toronto before I left. I have one finished sock. So here she is. I don't think I've ever talked about this on a podcast, this particular sock, because this was a later cast on before I left. So we have a basic sock where I was using the Craziest Sock Ladies sock DK vanilla sock recipe to create this sock. It's a cuff down sock. But of course, I've done some of my own bits to this, so let me talk about that. This I knit with, I think it's the smallest size. I think I did a 40 stitch cast on. I don't know if I have it in this book. I don't. It's my 2023 knitting book because I did it, I think, right before. And I did a twisted rib, I think for like 10 rows in a scrappy neon yarn. I don't even know what the ball band was. This guy, this like kind of gold, greeny, olivey color, which I adore, the combo, just like awesome contrast. This is in Perfect by Sandness Garn. It's actually a super wash with, I think, a nylon bit in it. And it's perfect. I'm knitting this with US3. I did a, what's it called? Slip stitch heel. Bloop. There she is in the scrappy yarn. And just did that little like heel nub in the scrappy neon. And then picked up the stitches at the ankle. The gusset, is that the gusset? With the perfect yarn again. These textured stitches, which I think will like calm once I block this, are slip stitches. So this was like the little like zhuzh that I did to make a little more fancy, is I did every fourth stitch, I did a slip stitch. I continued it on the front of the foot, but not on the base because I wanted the, you know, when you're walking, I want it to be like a smooth walk and not like a bumpy walk. And I'm super happy with them. I noticed I didn't knit any socks for myself in 2023. So there she is. What I did on my trip, this was the second sock. I cast it on the plane coming down. So I cast it on at the cuff and I knit for the flight coming down to Mexico. And this is where I got. I finished the heel. I'm at the point where I am doing decreases at the foot. I've had to steal those US3 needles for my Tekla top, which was essential for my beach and pool knitting, side knitting. So they'll come back to here, but I'm using them for the Tekla. They're just on hold for now. What my intention is with the flight back home, I'll finish my sock, which means the whole sock will be knit just on a flight. So I feel this is like, I don't know if you feel like this as a knitter, but when I'm knitting something and traveling, like even if it's, you know, commuting to work, for example, and I'm on the subway, but I'm producing, I feel like the time is so well spent instead of just wasted sitting there. And so for me, even though I'm just flying and sitting there in an airplane, I'm producing. So this whole sock will be made on a flight, or 2 flights, I should say. But those are just my fun little DK socks. Love the color. Can't wait to wear them. Super fun. Didn't mention the bag. The bag is this little silly donut bag that I purchased that you may have seen at the Textile Museum of Canada. And I love it. Super simple drawstring bag. Yay. Okay. Next up, I will just show some of my acquisitions that also came with me, and I'll explain why. Okay, I have zippy sounds, but like how fun are we in here of this bag? I'm going to open, it's going to make noise, right? There we go. Here are the acquisitions. So, love my life. His birthday is coming up very soon. I think in like 2-ish weeks, if I'm not mistaken. I have knit him already socks. Early on this year, I was so organized. So he already has birthday socks that don't tell. They're sitting in the bottom of my suitcase right now, hiding, but I will gift them to him while we're away. So that's exciting. I haven't got to this yet, but he has a pair of socks that I knit last year for him for, I think, a birthday or Christmas, and he adores. The yarn is not available in Canada. It's a German yarn that I could not find to get here, which is totally fine. I brought him with me to Romney Wool right before we left as well from Toronto, which is a yarn shop on Queen West. And we bought this. This is, I handballed up, but from a Yarn Swift. This is a Briggs and Little, what's it called? Sport? I think they call it Sport, even though it's not sport weight. I don't know why they call it Sport. And it is a sock base. So this is, I think it's like an 80% wool, 20% nylon. And it's like a one ply if you can. This is coming up beautifully in the camera. And this is one skein. So what I did is I put it onto my Yarn Swift. He picked this yarn. This is why I feel like this is super special, because he showed interest in wanting some gorgeous little yarn knit socks. And this is the most similar in color, in feel. I'm really excited, to the German sock yarn that he adores. So basically I wound the ball by hand off the skein, weighed it to get half before I left, of course, because I'm not bringing my Swift on the airplane with me, and produced 2 matching balls. What I also did is, sorry, I didn't say this. I actually did, I divided the weight in quarters, so 4 quarters, to get 2 strands each of these balls. My mistake for not sharing. So if you see, these are 2 strands of the quote Briggs and Little Sport that I'm going to hold together to make DK, because this girl does not knit fingering. I'm sorry, not yet, not in this moment in my life. And so this will be for one sock. This will be for one sock. That being said, that's the main color for the sock that he will eventually get. It's probably post-birthday, let's be honest. And we're either going to do neon, like cuff, heel, potentially toe. I don't know if I'll be able to get there. This is Yowl or Jowl from Lang. Super great sock yarn that I've used before. How fun are we? But the issue is that he has socks exactly almost like this color, except I used a Ramafino in a fun limey green. So if that is not going to fly for us, we have this super fun neon pink, also Yowl or Jowl, and he is kind of into it, which I'm just about let's get him in the pink. He loves a jazzy sock. The other option I have, I brought a few, is Jowl again, because I have the best neon highlighter colors, is this yellow. This is the same and leftover yarn from the Jowl highlighter yellow that I used in my Amy slipover. So there we go. That's it. So these are going to be socks for him, and I'm thrilled to be working with this yarn. It's gorgeous. And from everyone I've heard of that has knit with this yarn, adores it. Alternatively, of course, that will be my first priority, because I'm just knitting myself socks now, my airplane knits. These were this was kind of emergency knitting. First, if I needed a super simple grab and go travel knit where I can bring to the cafes with me, this was the idea with a sock. And depending how far I got with the socks that I was already knitting on the airplane. I also brought this. I know. Look at this, this girl half the suitcase yarn. This was going to be for a sock for me, and it was going to be combined with this if I didn't use it for his socks for the heel toe cuff idea. And what my idea was, my vision with this for me with neon socks, is I was going to alternate between the neon orange, neon pink. This is a new yarn to me. I can't remember the name offhand. I picked this up at Romney when I was there with him, when I purchased the one ply Briggs and Little. I'll include in the show notes. I wound it, again, I divided the weight of the ball in quarters and wound 2 balls double stranded to make a DK weight. And there we are. This very much reminds me of the colorway of Felix. It was the, what was it called? Hella? I think it was called Hella colorway by La Bien-Aimée. And I used that yarn, which is 100% yarn. This is not. This is with a nylon base as well for sock. But I did that baggy hue. I think I did it like a few months ago. I can't remember. And stunner, like love the color, love the neon. Anyway, so this reminds you of that. Super chatty. Just keep going. Sorry. So this is it. So basically, before I left for this trip, I was killing it with my yarn swift, and I don't have a ball winder, so I was winding everything by hand. This was pretty much in lieu of evening knitting for me, is that I balled up all of this sock yarn to prepare like DK sock yarn to be ready to go for when I'm here, because I didn't want to be without knitting. And I think to me that's like, as a knitter, that's one of the scariest things to be without. No, without yarn. I'm gonna just like plop this in the bag back. Sorry if it's making horrid noise for you. I hope it's not. But those colors, just delightful. Okay, that's that. That's the sock yarn. So that it was a lot of prep work, I have to say. And in hindsight of that, I had people comment about the packing video, the Packing for Paradise video, which featured just clothing, like garments, accessories that I had knit and sewn. And I did not even touch about my preparation for the knitting component of being away. But I do have to say, like, I think for me at least, I need to be super organized in preparing myself to come away with knitting so that I have everything I need. I have the tools I need, that I'm going to be able to finish off or start projects that I want, that I have the yarn prepared, that I know that things are going to work with the patterns, so I'm not stuck with yarn that isn't going to work with something. Because I feel like there would be nothing worse than being away, being in a gorgeous place where you're able to, absorb language and culture and smells and food and everything else and people, and then your hands aren't busy knitting. That's crazy to me. I can't do it. All right, so thank gosh we're ready and prepared and just having the most gorgeous time here, because this is a wonderful, wonderful place that we're in. Okay, that is it for the knitting. That is it for the acquisitions. And I think I'm just going to quickly smidge talk about the journal. So this is my second only knitting journal that I have. And I think it's always really fascinating for me. I'm always interested, like, how people document their knitting journey or their projects that they're doing. For me, I had not started with a knitting journal at all. I had, even if you've heard with other episodes that I've made, I didn't even start with patterns. I was just knitting free flow things. Where I am now is I do really appreciate documenting what I knit, how I knit it, what my mods were, so that if I ever want to knit anything like that again, or if people have questions, then I've documented at least the changes. And my last knitting journal was gold. This one's silver. One could imagine, like, why are we retorting to silver? I think she's fun. Like, hello, neon. 80s girl, I need it. But check this out. Okay, hold on. Right here. Like, super fun, right? This is, I'm not trying to promote this. It's just because I love the feel of these books and these journals. This is the Lutrum. I hope I'm saying it right. I believe it's a German company, and it is just such a solid knitting journal. Any journal, like, it doesn't have to be knitting. This is not knitting specific whatsoever. My last knitting journal that I had by the same company and book was lines. This one I chose to have dots, if you can see. And here's why I chose the dots. Because, do I have any examples in here? Probably not yet. No. But if I choose to do something where I'm going to do a chart or color work or, anything, I can easily, draw it out on the dots in like a quadrant, which I think is pretty cool. The dots also allow me to, like, write on the lines. And yeah, I loved starting a new knitting journal. I wonder if it's the teacher in me that really enjoys it. And sometimes, like, I just add little, stickies as I go if I need. My last knitting journal also has all the labels, like the yarn, the ball bands in them that I tape in and make flat. So she's a honker one. And yeah, this is the beginning of this year. I'll see. This will probably last me for a couple years, I'm sure, maybe more. But that's my little knitting journal. And I brought it with me. I figured the weight of this was worth it, because this way at least I can document what I'm doing with the knitting that I'm bringing, well, on my venture. Okay, what I think I'm going to do with timing is I'm going to press on. I will post and talk about my other yarny objects that I'm knitting on back at home in another episode. So this episode will just feature the knitting that I've brought here to Mexico. I think with that, I will say that I will wrap this episode up. I'm really excited to get back outside. We just came from the cafe for gorgeous coffee and breakfast this morning. We're heading into the early afternoon. The Love of My Life has a conference call, so I will probably head out and walk around town and bring my knitting with me and soak in the gorgeous day. And I'm really looking forward to including footage about where we've been, where, in future episodes, where we're going to go. And yeah, I love that. I hope you're enjoying the knitting content for sure, but I hope you join me back for some of the traveling that you're going to be seeing in the future. There's a yarn shop in town here that is open this weekend, and I'm so jazzed to get there. So I'm definitely going to find out from the owner if I can film a little footage there. All right. Okay. That's enough knitting goodness for right now. Thank you so much for joining me. If you liked this episode or even the channel, I definitely invite you to like and subscribe to Pairs Well with Knitting. So please do. And again, I very highly want to thank those that have prepared donations on my Ko-Fi account. I have to say, I know I said it in my last episode, I'm literally tickled pink anytime someone not only clicks on the Ko-Fi account, because that takes extra effort to even click down and, brings you to a whole separate website. But for people that find it within themselves to prepare a donation to me as, a courtesy, as an appreciation of what you're seeing, of what I'm sharing, I cannot say how thrilling that is and how great I think it makes me feel. It's a warm and cozy feeling. And I think I've had this conversation with other people where I think as a teacher and a public education teacher, which I have not talked about a lot this year at all, this is knitting content on here. But I think we do have a job that is often a thankless job. Not always, there is huge appreciation that goes on for the profession as well now, which is fantastic in Canada and Ontario. But I think, here again, I feel like I'm giving of myself. I hope you're seeing this, because this is who I am. This is me. And for people, I think, to recognize and appreciate that. Share in the comments, the likes, the subscriptions, subscribing, and then the Ko-Fi donations. It definitely, I think, legitimizes that you're enjoying this. And I'm thrilled. I have to say, what a thank you. So, okay, that's enough mushiness for now. Okay, so I hope that you find great joy in your knitting today, and wherever you may be, to bring a little knitting with you. Enjoy that entire experience, the smells, the people, the experience, the feeling. I really hope that you find happiness in what you're making with your hands today. Until next time, wishing you all the best and take care. Thank you.